Hello and welcome everyone to our second of four special events for Bentham brand ambassadors and future Bentham ambassadors. Welcome. My name is Scott, and on behalf of Bentham Science, thank you so much for taking time to join us today. As always, joining me here, as always, is our resident expert, Professor Gareth Dyke. Gareth, how's it going?
Good, thanks. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. Thanks, Scott. How are you today? Everything okay? Or rather, I should say, how are you this evening? How's things going this evening?
This evening, everything is nice. It's a nice, clear, crisp evening. And if you're a Bentham ambassador joining us from here in Southeast Asia, I'm based here in Tokyo. If you're joining us from China or from Japan, welcome and thanks so much for joining at this late hour. Or if you're watching on demand, thank you for taking time to watch this video. Gareth, you are in a rather exotic
Yes,
and sunny place.
I'm not sure it's all that sunny today, but it's actually raining. But I'm in Antalya in Turkey. And if you're listening to this and you're an ambassador or a colleague of Bentham's from Turkey, then do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Perhaps there's even the opportunity to meet in person. If you're in this particular part of the world, that would be fantastic.
That'll be great. And I'm jealous I'm not there with you in beautiful Antalya, although it's rainy today, but nice warm Antalya. And as Gareth said, if you are at the conference, then feel free to reach out to the Bentham team there and say hello. We always love to see our ambassadors. And by the way, if you are already a Bentham ambassador, welcome. Of course, this event is for you. And even if you are not yet a Bentham ambassador, this event is also for you. Feel free to click the sign up links. We'll share those with you later. So if you're interested in becoming a Bentham brand ambassador, we'll show you how to sign up and some of the benefits that you can enjoy by becoming an ambassador for the Bentham brand. But the key topic tonight, Gareth, what are some key points to keep in mind for people joining us, either if they're live here at the event or watching the video? Our topic tonight is the different journal types that you might
Right.
encounter as an author and some of the things to keep in mind. Any key points that you want our guests to think about as they listen to your talk today?
Well, we'd hope that people listening to this will learn a little bit about the different kinds of journals that Bentham Science has, Bentham Science publishers have, so traditional as well as open access journals, and we'll talk about the differences a little bit later on in our event. But also we'd like to get across like some of the issues, some of the pitfalls, some of the things to watch out for if you're selecting a journal and why it really is so important to pick a journal at the start of the article writing process. That's what we'd hope that people get out of this, as well as learning about Bentham Science and signing up to be a Bentham Science ambassador if you haven't done so already.
Fantastic. We'll share the links with you. It's a very easy sign up process. And if you are already a Bentham ambassador and you haven't claimed your rewards or haven't claimed your reward points, we'll also explain briefly how you can do that. It's very simple, very easy process on the Bentham Ambassador website. So welcome if you are an ambassador already, or if you're thinking of becoming one, or even if you're just joining us to learn about journal types. Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining. And thank you, Gareth, as always, for lending your expertise.
Yeah, thanks very much, Scott, for the introduction, and thanks to you for joining so late in the evening over there in Japan. Like, I think we'll
My
get
pleasure.
started. We'll talk a little bit about understanding different journals as a special event for current and future Bentham brand ambassadors. And we probably should get started by just saying welcome again, right, Scott, to everybody joining us. And we invite your questions and comments. Do put your questions and comments into the chat box. Hopefully we have that enabled so that everybody can chat with everybody in the webinar chat. Do let us know where you're from. Do put a little bit of information about yourself there in the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from this evening.
Absolutely. Chat is set up and ready for everyone, so feel free to share your comments, questions at the end of the talk today, although Gareth is very busy today at the conference. Gareth, if you have a moment, we might have some questions from our guests today. So I see we have guests joining us from India and elsewhere. Thank you. Thanks for introducing yourselves. Feel free to say
Brilliant.
hello in the chat box. If
Yeah,
you have any
absolutely.
questions, if you have any questions for Professor Dyke, please let us know. Thanks for joining.
About Bentham, or about the different journals that we publish, or about how you can get involved with Bentham. Do have a look at benthamambassadors.com if you have that opportunity. That's the place to go to find out about how you can become a Bentham ambassador and the benefits of the Bentham ambassador program. Well, what are we going to talk about today? I mean, so Scott will be around as well, popping in and out, back and forth as we go through our event today. We're going to talk about journal types, different journal types, different kinds of journals that you could choose, that you could use for your next article submission. We're also going to talk about Bentham journals, the particular kinds of journals that Bentham has available to you as a researcher. And we'll finish off our event today having talked about journal types, journal selection. Bentham journals will also talk about the benefits of becoming a Bentham brand ambassador. All about ready to get going? What do you think, Scott?
I think we're good to go. Yeah, thanks to everyone for joining us, and thank you, Gareth, as always, for your time.
Fantastic stuff. All right. Well, if you're joining us today, let us know where you're from. Are you looking for a journal for your next paper? Do put that information for us in the chat box as well, because we'd love to provide you with some advice. We'd love to give you some insights into the kinds of journals that Bentham has that might be suitable for your next research project. Perhaps you're also thinking about getting involved in a thematic issue, and Bentham, across the 170 or so journals in the Bentham portfolio, we regularly do publish special thematic issues. So maybe that's something of interest to you. As well as an ambassador, you can get discounts on access to our thematic issues and so on. So let us know how we can help. Let us know how we can provide you with support, and we can provide you with extra information to enable you to manage your submissions as a Bentham author. So you're probably asking, how can I become a Bentham ambassador? Well, if you go onto the website benthamambassadors.com, at the URL, click on register. That's step 1 in the process. And step 2 will give you access to a short registration form, which you fill in, of course. And then once you get approved, we check everybody that wants to become a Bentham brand ambassador. We check your credentials, we check your employment, we check your location, your university. Make sure you are a bona fide active researcher, somebody that we can help, and also somebody that would be in a position to help us also at Bentham Science. So once approved into the program, you'll become a member of the Bentham Science Ambassador Program. Get access to more and more events and training, just like this event that Scott and I are doing this evening. So do have a look at that information as well, as we now continue to explore journal types, journal selection, Bentham journals, and talk more about how you can get involved as an ambassador. But let's begin by thinking about the different kinds of journals that could be available to you as a researcher when making your next choice with a particular piece of research where you're going to send that research for eventual publication. Now, you're probably familiar with some of this information already, but basically in scholarly publishing, in the international publishing world, we have basically 2 different kinds of journals, so-called traditional journals and so-called open access journals. In traditional journals, where access is sold to libraries, to universities for a fee, so you've all been in that position where you tried to download a paper from a traditional journal and can't get through that paywall stage, you can publish for free. The content in traditional journals is sold back to universities and libraries, etc. The content is held behind paywalls. We've all published in these journals, but some of our colleagues around the world, of course, can't access the publications, perhaps because their institutions, their libraries, their universities don't have paid access to that particular subscription. That's traditional publishing, and 120, excuse me, of the Bentham journals are following that model fundamentally. So no cost to you to publish in 126 of the Bentham Science Publishers journals. On the other side of the coin, of course, open access journals. Here you can publish, but you have to pay, or your funder or your university has to pay what we call an article processing charge. And this is meaning that once the paper's published, the content is available for everybody. Anyone can access, anyone can download the article that you've published in an open access journal. We've all considered these journals. We've all looked at the cost of these journals. And we've all asked ourselves, can I afford to pay that article processing charge? Open access journals, as well, as we'll talk about a little bit later in this event, suffer from the predatory journal problem because the business model is based around having people pay this article processing charge. So this is the basics of article publishing, the basics of the different kinds of journals out there in the market, traditional journals versus open access journals, just to kind of put that in context for you. So Bentham has both 40 fully open access journals within the portfolio that we call Bentham Open, as well as 126 traditional journals where you don't have to pay to publish. But if you want your article in a traditional journal to be published fully open access, you can do that as well for a fee. And that's called a hybrid publishing model. So gold open access on the one hand, green open access on the other. So if you publish a paper in a traditional journal, one of the Bentham 126, you don't pay for that publication opportunity. Of course, once the paper has successfully passed through peer review and all that stuff, you will then have the opportunity potentially to put the article into a repository, such as your own institutional website, such as a site like ResearchGate, where the content can be made accessible, not in final version, but in a late stage draft. And that's called green open access publishing, as opposed to the fully gold model that we've already talked about in this event today. So that's the fundamental difference. When we talk about the different kinds of journals out there in the world, traditional, which can be converted to open access through a hybrid model, and fully open access journals. Very important distinctions as we get started with our event today. And we think about what open access actually is, what that actually means. Open access publishing, part of the open science movement, ensures that publications, data, content are accessible to everybody. And so this can include all of your data, your work, your results, conclusions, as well as sometimes peer review as well. And it's been really, really important that research work at the cutting edge of various fields has been freely available. Just have a think about the COVID-19 pandemic that we all went through a few years ago. Had much of that research not been freely accessible, published free online, we may be in a different place with the development of vaccines and so on. So open access ensures that publications are accessible to everybody. It's part of the wider open science movement. But because there's an article processing charge involved, because this model requires that authors, institutions, funding agencies pay a fee for full online open access, this has also led to a rise, unfortunately, in the number of fake journals, which we also call predatory journals. They will try to cheat you out of your money and out of your research, and they're getting more and more sophisticated at doing this. So part of the training, part of the work that we do at Bentham is to provide information to researchers around the world so that you can understand about the difference between an open access journal that's reputable and an open access journal that might be fake or predatory and exists just to take your money. So that's important to be aware of as well. And there's a number of ways that you can spot a fake journal. The URL on the website might be strange. The site contains obvious errors. It's not listed in a good index like the DOAJ. The editorial board members are unknown, or they don't actually work for the journal. The publication is not regular. It's not putting out content regularly or on time. The articles themselves are not properly peer reviewed. They don't match with the journal aims and scope. And fees, critically, a reputable open access journal will only ever charge you an APC, an article processing charge, after your paper has been published and accepted, peer reviewed, I should say, and accepted. So one big red flag for a predatory publisher is that they might be asking you for a fee up front at the submission stage, or a fee for peer review or something like that. And also be aware that these predatory publishers are in the business as well of sending lots of spam emails to everybody full of empty promises. So some of the red flags for you, how you can tell that a journal might be a bit on the dodgy side, might be a bit predatory. A real open access journal, a reputable open access journal, of course, is listed in all of the relevant databases, COPE, DOAJ, OASPA, and so on. The journal, as all Bentham journals do, will have a robust peer review process. All of the fees, the policies are fair, clearly listed and explained in detail. So do have a look at our websites. Do have a look at sites like Think, Check, Submit, publicationethics.org, the DOAJ, and OASPA if you have any questions about what constitutes a reputable open access journal as opposed to one that might be trying to cheat you out of your hard-earned cash. Now, another great choice, another great thing to think about when putting a research paper together and thinking about publishing a research paper is the possibility that once the work is in a relatively late stage, or you've presented at a conference, or you have an abstract potentially, you might wish to consider putting that onto a preprint platform. What's a preprint platform? What's a preprint server? These are where you can put content, information, ideas about your research, partially written drafts and so on, onto a platform where everybody in your research community can have access to it, can see it, can comment on it, and can use it. And again, during the pandemic, these became particularly useful for us as researchers because the latest information, the latest data about particular aspects of the virus, of the pandemic, were made freely available and accessible to everybody. So this is a place where you can put late stage research work. Authors have concerns about their use, predominantly around the use of copyright and priority, but a preprint platform actually protects you more than if you don't use a preprint platform. If you give a presentation at a conference, somebody else could see you give that presentation and go off and copy the work that you've done. But if you preprint the conference presentation, if you put the slides, the abstract onto a preprint platform, then you are, of course, protected by a Creative Commons license and by a document object identifier. So have a think about the use of preprints as well as part of your journal journey. Bentham, for example, if you're listening to this in Japan or China, Bentham has partnerships with local government preprint platforms in China and in Japan that you may wish to think about using for your research. We made this slide just quickly to give you some information about the different journal indicators that you'll see out there in the market. What's the impact factor? What does that mean? What's the site score? What does that mean? The IPP, a SNP, an eigenfactor, an H-index, an SJR, and SJR2. What do these indicators mean? So that you can take a screenshot of this, or you can listen back to this presentation later when you are thinking and deciding which journal to use for your next research project. You can have a look at this information and make a more informed choice about where you want to put your paper, because here we have the information explained for these different metrics that you'll probably see on journal websites. So that's a bit of information to get us going this afternoon, this evening, on journal types. Traditional versus open access, fundamentally with traditional journals being convertible to open access, either via the green open access route or by going fully gold in a hybrid model with a fee. So journal types, and we've talked also about predatory journals and some ways that you can identify the potential predators out there in the market, those shark-infested waters of research publishing. But what about journal selection? Let's talk a little bit about that in the second part of our presentation today, because journal selection is critically important, probably one of the most important steps that researchers go through, one of the most important decisions that researchers have to make in their publishing journey, but they often don't put much time into this. They just pick a journal based on what their supervisor has suggested or where they've seen papers published recently. This is important because with Scott and I, with our training, we can help you to find the best journal possible for your research. And journal selection speeds up your article publication. Effective journal selection speeds up that publication journey, helps you to maximize the impact of your paper, and also can help you to detect and avoid fake journals. So we do emphasize this. We do encourage you to think about where you're going to publish the next time you finish a piece of research, because 2 million papers get published every year, 20,000 per month, just in the medical sciences. Picking a good journal for your next research project means that you can ensure that your work stands out from all of the other work that gets published, that people will see your paper, and people will read, and people will cite your work. So it really, really is critically important. And so we usually ask this question in these events: when do you think the best time to select a journal is? And it's the best time before you write your paper. This is a great piece of advice that I was given years and years ago when I was a PhD student back in the day. Before beginning to write your next research article, have a think about where you're going to be submitting that article. Why is it that the best time to select a journal is before you write your article? Well, it's a great step forward for you because, of course, every journal's different. What kind of article you plan to write will be different as well, depending on the journal. So if you've got a journal in mind, you can sculpt, you can structure, you can put together the shape of your research article before you begin the writing process, and really save yourself a huge amount of time and energy. You get to know the aims and scope, the readership, the disciplines, the topics, the types of articles. You also get access to the journal guidelines before starting the writing process, the procedures. What does peer review look like at this journal? The formatting, the word limits, the copyright. Will this be UK or US English? All of these difficult, tricky issues in writing and publishing are solved at the beginning of the process if you select a journal at the beginning before you start to write. And also, you can use this step, initial journal selection, as a way to maximize your message. Thinking about your message, your audience, and your structure before you begin that writing process. As you build your mentorship group, you look at who's on the editorial board, who the potential reviewers of your paper might be. Are international colleagues aware of you and your work? So thinking about a journal before you begin the process, thinking about your message, your audience, and the structure of your writing helps with the efficiency of the article writing and publishing process. And you may also, of course, wish to consider, as we've talked about, the use of preprint platforms, because what we do encourage people to do, and get in touch with us at Bentham if you'd like to learn more as an ambassador about participating potentially in peer review or getting involved in the creation and development of thematic issues. If you communicate with editors before you begin the writing process, lots of steps and stages are smoothed out along the way. Talking to editors, asking them, would you be interested in seeing a submission to your journal on this particular topic? For example, they'll write back and they'll say, well, Gareth, that's not so interesting for our journal at the moment, but do have a look at X, Y, and Z alternatives. Speeding up the writing and publishing process with effective communication at all stages really, really helps, because we know researchers struggle with selecting a good journal, but they often don't put much time into that process, as we've talked about already. When researchers think about where they would like to publish, of course, they're thinking about impact factor. They're thinking about journal reputation, reach within a particular field. Will the paper that they publish be open access or not? And so these variables, these factors, come into play when you pick a journal. Effective journal selection, really important. It's a marriage between research and publication, because researchers are thinking about speed. They're thinking about, will the paper have high reach, wide readership, and what will the impact factor of the final publication look like? And so journal selection, for each research project that you work on, for each set of data that you collect, for each message that you develop, as a researcher will be a trade-off between the elements on the slides that we're showing you at the moment: speed to publication, the reach and readership, and what does the impact factor of the journal look like. So do have a look at this and do have a think about what is most important to me when selecting a journal. Is it the aims and scope, the readership? Is it the article type, the publication speed, the frequency, the indexing, the rank, the impact factor? Will the article be online? Will it be open access? And what's the acceptance rate at the end of the day? All of these variables come into play when we select a journal. And of course, there aren't that many tools out there that enable you to do this. We're working on one, keep it quiet, but you'll be aiming high. You'll be choosing appropriately for a suitable journal for your work. And of course, if you need help with that, we'd be delighted to assist. Do get in touch with us if we can provide any help and support with picking a journal. And there's a tool that you can have a look at called the Edance Journal Selector tool. Just Google that, have a look at that. You'll be able to use that. It really is, at the moment, one of the only publisher independent ways that you can get in to decide which journal would be most suitable for your next study. So rules and tools for journal selection as you self-evaluate your work. Are you not sure that your particular paper, that paper that you've just finished, is good enough for that journal or another journal? Use this quick checklist that Scott and I put together to help you decide. How novel, how original is your paper within known contexts? How good are your methods, the study design, the data analysis? Talk to other colleagues, show your paper to other researchers if you'd like to make sure that the methods are as robust as possible. Have you minimized bias? What are the real world implications of the study? Is your study ethically compliant? Because you won't get it published in a good journal if that is not the case. And is your writing highly readable and suitable for non-specialist readers? If it's not, and you'd like help, again, do get in touch, but you can self-evaluate. We can also help you to decide which and where journals, choosing a journal would be best for your next piece of research. So we've talked about journal types. We've talked a little bit about journal selection. Let's dive in and just give you a brief intro to the journals that Bentham Science has available. And let me just say initially that Bentham was founded in 1993 by an eminent organic chemist, a researcher of great repute. So this is a company, quite a small publisher, medium-sized, I should say, but founded by scientists for scientists. So researchers and scientists are at the heart of everything that we do at Bentham. And as I mentioned already, 126 hybrid journals, traditional journals, 3940 open access journals, more than 1,400 ebooks, as well as a range of other information solutions. So if you haven't heard of Bentham before, or you'd like to sign up as a Bentham ambassador, or you'd just like to learn more about the company, do have a look at benthamscience.com or eurekaselect.com to learn more. We're listed in Scopus, Cabell's, Clarivate, PubMed. So all of the journals, many of them have impact factors worth a look. As a Bentham ambassador, you get, of course, discounted access to all of these journals. We'd love to hear from you at the end of this event. Many of the Bentham journals have great impact factors. They're well indexed, as I've already shown you on the previous slide. The world's leading review journals in molecular medicine, drug metabolism, Alzheimer's disease research, and so on. And two current Bentham titles, pharmaceutical design and medicinal chemistry, are among the top 30 impact factor pharmaceutical journals around the world. And of course, we're delighted to say that more than 30 of those have impact factors, and 6 Nobel laureates endorse Bentham journals by serving on our editorial boards. So a great publisher with scientists, with researchers at the heart of everything that we do. So if you're not familiar with Bentham, the publisher, have a look at Bentham Science Publishers, benthamscience.com or eurekaselect.com. Great places to get into the portfolio, learn quickly about the content that we do have available and how we can help you as a researcher getting your work published in a great journal. And don't forget about the open access portfolio as well. 39 journals in the gold open access division, all fully open access, all publishing completely gold, but there will be an article processing charge for that. If you have questions about that, or you'd like us to get you access to any discounts, which you do have already as, of course, a Bentham ambassador, do get in touch with Scott and I at the end of this event today. Just a quick list of the journals with impact factors. You can see current neuropharmacology, current vascular pharmacology up there at the top of the list, up there with impact factors above 4 and 5. So great choices, rapid publication, robust, double-blind peer review. If these are areas that you'd be interested in learning more about, then do get in touch with us at the end of this event. And as we already discussed, Bentham journals are featured in many of the leading indexes, Cabell's, Scopus, Clarivate, to name but a few. So do check us out. Do have a look at what we've got to offer as opportunities for getting your work published. And I should also mention a recent piece of news, which we're very proud of within the Bentham family, and that is that all Bentham open access titles, articles published in titles indexed in Scopus, are now also available on Science Direct. And for researchers, this is a huge deal because, of course, now if you publish with Bentham, many people around the world will be able to access and download your articles. So articles in Science Direct, of course, that means that lots and lots of other researchers will be able to download and access that content. So journal types, journal selection, a little bit about Bentham journals. Let's move on now and quickly talk about the benefits that you can gain from Bentham Science by becoming a Bentham ambassador. And I strongly encourage you to consider doing this if you haven't done so already, because our Bentham brand ambassadors recommend our journals to libraries, universities, corporations, and research facilities around the world. And they invite researchers, students, peers, and colleagues to contribute their work to Bentham Science journals. Ambassadors promote Bentham Science publishers using our journal catalogs, journal flyers, ebook catalogs, and various other materials. So you are going to be helping us to spread the good word about Bentham Science within your institution. And in return, we give you discounts and benefits based on a reward system, a reward points system. You get certified, you get that certificate, you can add that to your CV. And you, of course, spread research among the scientific community, which is an altruistic reward, but it benefits everybody. If everybody is getting their work published, everything is happening quicker, smoother, more effectively, then everybody gains. So do have a think about whether you'd like to sign up and become a Bentham brand ambassador. You can earn points for your activities on behalf of Bentham Science publishers, and you can redeem those points for special offers within our company and within our reward center. You invite peers, colleagues, and students. You earn points whenever you do that. You recommend your library, your institute for a free trial, or promote Bentham on our behalf at conferences and events. Do get in touch with Scott and I if you'd like more information about this, or have a look at benthamambassadors.com. And indeed, if you're watching this and you are a librarian, or you know a librarian, a friendly librarian at your institute, do scan this QR code, or do take a screenshot of this QR code, share it with your librarian. It gives your institution 3 months completely free access to all of our Bentham content. You can register your institution for a 3-month trial. All of our content will be made available, including, of course, those 40+ impact factor journals. And then at the end of the 3-month period, you can see how you feel about whether you want to continue with a full Bentham content subscription. Have a look at this. Do take a screenshot. Do share it with friends and colleagues at your institution. And people ask us, hey, I'm an ambassador. I've been doing all of this good work for Bentham. How do I redeem those reward points that I've accumulated? It's easy. Just go onto the website and go to benthamambassadors.com and follow the link here on the screen. Log in using your ID and password and click on the link to redeem your rewards. And you can choose the reward of your choice. So really it is that simple. And we welcome everybody listening to this. Sign up as a Bentham brand ambassador, gather, gain, accumulate reward points, and join us in the Bentham family. Just to explain how it works, open access discounts from redeem points, different rankings of journals, numbers of journals in those different tiers. If you accumulate enough points, you can get your papers published absolutely free of charge in a high impact factor Bentham journal. Following that hybrid model that we talked about earlier, your work will be fully open access. Just do the work if you can to spread the word, share the information, share the good news about Bentham Science and the work that we do. And again, just another table that shows you like what the monetary value of these different redeem points will be. Of course, everybody listening to this will get access to a recording so that you can listen back again, take screenshots, think about whether this is something that you'd like to do to get involved with and join us at our next Bentham Science event. So in step one, go on the URL below, benthamambassadors.com. Fill in a short registration form in step two, and then wait for approval, because once approved, you become a member of the Bentham Science Ambassador Program. You can start accumulating points from your activities promoting and sharing our journals with the world. So with that, I'll say thank you so much for listening to this short presentation this afternoon, this evening, this morning. I don't know where you're listening to this from, but you're all extremely welcome. Do follow Bentham Science on a range of different social media channels, as you can see here, and I will quickly have a look at the chat box and see if there are any questions or comments from anybody joining us today. But it's been really fun to do this, and I've really enjoyed putting this together with my colleague Scott. Scott's sent a number of the links into the chat. People are saying thank you for the information. It's great to have the chance to do this. I'm just having a look. Yeah, if you'd like to put your questions into the chat box, that would be absolutely fantastic. Yes, Scott's put lots of links and resources to help everybody discover and understand what predatory journals are, like what predatory journals look like, and how you can identify and determine like whether the journal that you have been considering making a submission to is predatory or not. I don't see any questions in the chat box. I see lots of nice comments. Thank you so much. I see lots of feedback, lots of links, lots of chat comments, lots of remarks. Scott, how are we doing? How's everything going? You okay?
Great, fantastic. And thanks for this wonderful talk, Professor Dyke. As always, you've shared so much useful information, and we had some wonderful comments from our guests. Thank you for joining us from all around the world, especially at this late hour here in this time zone. So thanks to all of you, and thanks to you, Gareth. We do have one raised hand from Professor Kanta. Professor Kanta, if you could maybe type your question either into the chat box or the Q&A and or reach out to us afterwards, we'd be happy to answer your question for you. So feel free to let us know your question. Gareth, you mentioned some very useful information about early journal selection. It really is important, isn't it, to have a decision in mind as you start to write your paper. It's incredibly important to select early.
Yeah, we always say that, don't we? Absolutely. Like if there's one thing that you're going to be doing to speed up the process, it would be that, rather than writing a paper and then thinking about where you can submit it after having finished the writing. Do that journal selection stage beforehand. I would say that's key.
Absolutely. Okay, Professor Swain, it looks like you've got your hand raised. If you had a question for us, just let us know. You can type that into the chat box or into the Q&A. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. Actually, it's a question from another guest here. Our guest asks, recently, I sent a manuscript to a journal, but it was rejected. The sad part was they did not assign any reason, like our journal getting too much submission, etc. So should I send the manuscript to the journal again? So this is a great question. So,
Yeah, it
Professor, any
is.
thoughts?
It's a great question. And what I would do is write like a short email back to the journal and just say, you know, I see that you've rejected my recent submission, and give the manuscript number, give them the dates upon which you made the submission and all that information, and just ask them for a reason, because they should be giving you a reason. I mean, there's no, there's no merit in just rejecting a paper just because. At least they could tell you that the article was out of scope, or they didn't think it would be interesting enough for their readers, something like that. So I do encourage you to not make a new submission yet, but just write first of all to the editor and ask for some explanation. Great question. Thank you for that.
Great question. Thank you. And as we often mention in our training, Gareth, sending pre-submission inquiries is a great way to just scope out whether your paper is suitable for that journal's aims and scope. It's minimal commitment for you
Absolutely.
as an author. You can send
It
as
is.
many pre-submission inquiries as you like and send those to as many journals as you might be interested in. Of course, ethically, you can only submit your paper to one journal at a time, but before that, you can send out as many inquiries as you like and see if your paper is a match for those journals' aims and scope. So we recommend
Absolutely.
that to our guests.
And that's something that we talk about a lot in our training. So do have a look at the other trainings that we provide, that we have, like on the Bentham YouTube channel, or get in touch with Scott and I if you'd like to book some training for your own institution. We do these events all of the time. So do get in touch if you'd like to learn more about any of these topics: writing, publishing, peer review, managing journal selection, ethics, and all that good stuff, even promoting your work post publication. Scott, it's been great. Thank you so much for all of your efforts today, and thank you so much for staying up so late. I know it's almost the witching hour over there in Tokyo. So.
It is. It's my pleasure, as always, Gareth, to join you, and you always share so many insights with us. I always appreciate it. And of course, thanks to our guests for making time. If you are a Bentham ambassador, thank you, as always, for your time and efforts. If you are thinking of becoming one, we've provided links in the chat window. It's benthamambassadors.com. You can sign up there and become an ambassador and enjoy all the benefits. So thanks to our guests, and thank you, as always, Gareth, for your time. Always appreciated.
You too, Scott. Have a great evening. Take care, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thanks,
Have a good
everyone.
day.
Thank you, Gareth. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.